Right. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to everybody down in Etherland there. So, yes, I'll have to apologise to Jerry before I start, and that is that although I thought we'd be getting to a bit of morphology or morphology in taxonomy this time, we're not going to quite get there. But I am setting the scene so that the next time I do this, we will definitely be talking about morphology. But I hope you enjoy this, and we'll see how it goes. So this is taxonomy part 2. If you remember last time, we talked about binomial nomenclature, and the advantage of that two-part name and the way that it's done and controlled is that there is only one species can have that particular name. So, and it removes any doubt about what we're talking about, because common or trivial names have a number of problems in that regard. So today we're going to talk about species and species concept. Just over here, I hope. Anyway, right. Okay. A species is, as it says here, the basic level of the taxonomy hierarchy. And I guess you'd probably think that defining a species is fairly easy, but in fact, it's proved to be not so. At present, there are 26 or 27 different definitions of what a species. All right, I've just illuminated two potential problems with that Ernst Mayr description there of what a species is. If you've got two distant populations, how do you know they're going to interbreed without putting them in an artificial situation? So there's once more problem there. And if we just take that definition in a simple way, then we could say that lions and tigers are the same species, because if you put them in an unnatural situation in captivity, they will occasionally interbreed. And what we find, and in a more modern sense, Mayr's definition has been improved upon in a sense by adding the second part there, which is and capable of producing fertile offspring. And at least that eliminates the tiger-lion problem or the horse and donkey problem, okay? Interestingly, most people are quite happy with the definition that involves something to do with reproduction. And intriguingly, Charles Darwin, in The Origin of Species, actually, they were having problems back then defining a species. And his interesting statement was that people were generally happy with something that revolved around creation. I put that in parentheses. It should be noted, though, that some of the 27 species concepts don't involve reproduction. Okay, and I've just listed a few different ways in which you can look at what a species is. For instance, you could say that something's a species if phenotypically, now that means what it actually physically looks like, if it stands apart from everything else. Now, this means, of course, that a lot of the things that we would call subspecies, because they look different, would become full species in their own right. And that's one of the problems with a definition like that. You can have another species concept, which only looks at ecological niches. Okay. For instance, two Australian butterflies, Theclanestes albicincta and Theclanestes miscani, at least they're two that I know reasonably well. I understand that their reproductive systems structurally are very, very similar. But of course, one lives on acacia plants, miscani, and albicincta lives on bit of bush plant, okay, Adriana quadripartum. You can have species concepts which revolve around mitochondrial DNA. If the mitochondrial DNA on this species is different, on this population is different from this one, they're different species. Some people even, the terminal lines in a phylogenetic setup could be considered species. So anyway, there are lots of different ways that you can look at it, and not all of them involve reproduction. That what they're looking at is the opposites, the opposite gender, the same species, and they're ready to mate. Visual stimulation, as I tried to illustrate in the previous pictures. And I've just got a few others there. Plumes, antlers, coloration and colour patterning are all visual indicators that this other animal is something you should be interested in. And something which has always interested me quite a bit is pre-copulatory behaviour or courtship behaviour. And that is a sequence of actions that's critical to the success of copulation. Okay, and I'll illustrate that a little bit more in a moment. Most insects have also got an extra thing in there to stop the cross-species mating. And that's, as I've got here, a mechanical one. The genitalia tend to fit together as a lock and a key. Okay, and because of that, because genitalia in insects has always been realised to be something important, then it's being used by entomologists really right from the get-go as being a point of study with regards to animal taxonomy, particularly insect taxonomy. And so we've brought ourselves up to an next talk, but we'll just have a look at a few pictures here. Now I thought I'd include some Lepidoptera, and on the left here we've got Anitus eximia, which is a species which goes from Melbourne right up to Brisbane. The interesting thing with this species is the male, which is the smaller, paler moth there, releases the scent. We call this male calling, and the females fly around to find the males. And so it's not surprising that if you go light cheating, you get many more female Anitus, because they're the ones that are flying around and come across the light. On the right there, I've got two Abantiades species. That's the opposite. That's female calling. It's the female that releases the pheromone, and the male flies around and finds them. In the top there, we've got, I think looking at that, it's probably Abantiades neglecta, which is a West Australian species. But what I wanted, the bottom one there, if you have a look at the antennae there, which is one of the major ways of picking up pheromones, of course, you can see how fantastically structured these those antennae are. And so the males will fly around and find the females. And I've got one more slide here. Oh, beautiful. There was actually a lot of work being done on the Grayling Butterfly, and that sort of pre-copulatory courtship behaviour work was started in the 1940s, but there's actually just been a rather nice paper written by a couple of Italian lepidopterists comparing two species of grayling in Italy with regards to courtship behaviour. Anyway, so you often hear about the courtship behaviour of Grayling butterfly, so I thought I'd put at least a picture of the Graylings up there. And then we've got a male and a female facing each other. And I did actually have some YouTube clips. There are some YouTube clips. There are a number of Graylings pre-courtship. And I suggest that if you're interested, you go on YouTube and put that in and it will come up. But one of the final acts with the Grayling butterfly is what's happening in the bottom drawing here. And that's where the male sort of pushes up at the rear end and then leans forward, it's called bowing, and traps the female antennae in between his wings. And he's got sex scales on those wings which tell her this is a male, etc, etc, etc. So anyway, so there we've got the Grayling butterfly. I just thought that I'd put the other two illustrations on because people spend a lot of very, very useful time studying this sort of behaviour. Okay, and so we've got some behaviours there of I must admit the middle one looks as though it could be a skipper and the right one is a moth there. But the next time you see a male and a female butterfly, sit down and have a look and see if you can pick up some of this courtship behaviour, because they all do it, because it's a way of making sure that the right species is attempting to mate with the right species. Okay. So, next time I promise we'll talk about morphology, and that for now is the end. Thank you.
Any questions for Mike?